Well, welcome. We have a small group, but that's okay. There's always lots to learn, and so I just thank you for taking the time out of your day to be with us tonight, and I'm really pleased to introduce. We've got Leanne Lamoli, who's here from with us from Church Insurance. Leanne's been with Church Insurance for 20 years. She's been working with the Diocese of Western Massachusetts for 10 years. So we're really lucky to have her. She has quite an extensive insurance background, and especially enjoys working one-on-one with our churches. And then we have, I think, Mary Frances, I think Libby, I think you probably both know Don Allison, who's our Chancellor.
Okay.
So, and Don will often get involved when legal questions arise about issues around building use and agreements and that kind of thing when we're looking at outside groups using our spaces. So we are going to talk about managing risk in the congregations today. It's a common challenge in every business, and our partners at Church Insurance, and they are partners, are there to help us to manage the various risks that come up. And there are many. And really the communication with the insurance carrier is key really to helping manage risk. And even if you think, there might be a question, should I ask the insurance company, should I not? It's always best to contact them if there's any questions. They're there to help us. And so I going to leave it to Leanne to talk about many of the resources that are available online through cpg.org. There's an insurance section there, and so she'll talk a bit more about that, and to talk about the insurance program that you do have. Every church in the diocese is covered through Church Insurance, so it's a very comprehensive program. And so we encourage questions, as the discussion begins. Just if you have questions, just raise your hand and just answer them as we go along. So I guess we'll just get started, Leanne, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate the invite. It's always very helpful to have somebody from the church insurance company itself being able to help answer some of these questions that we get very frequently, especially now with, coming back from COVID and trying to find ways to, repurpose some of these buildings and get some resources coming in so that you can pay one of your biggest bills, your insurance bill, right? Not that I want to say that, but it is. It's usually the second or third biggest bill. Mortgage, heat, insurance. That's what we hear. Mm-hmm. So I thank you for allowing me to give our perspective with the risk management, tending to your properties. It's this time of year that we see a lot of churches, everybody's coming out of hibernation, wanting to do different things, bringing everybody back to the church from the winter, and just being able to have a lot more activities that are going on. And, risk management becomes a key piece of making sure that the churches are kept safe. We're trying to reduce any likelihood of injuries and claims that may arise. We try and mitigate any type of, basically so that the church is not negligent. Liability, those are the ones that we can manage a bit differently than the property claims, right? So that being said, we have quite a bit of risk management tip sheets, if you will, on our website, the cpg.org. And if you just go to the toggle bar up at the top and type in risk management, there are probably, when I do it, it's set to 10 per page, and it's 292 pages. So you can imagine.
Oh my
So you can always, once you get to the risk management page, then go to the bar and type in maybe something more simple of what you're looking for, which would be use of church property by outside groups. That's one of our biggest questions. That's kind of what I want to touch on mostly tonight. If you know any questions that you have right away, you want to start asking, that's fine. What we typically tell our clients is you look at who is going to be using the building, if it's a short term or a long term. If it's a group like an Alcoholics Anonymous or Knocking On, the Boy Scouts, knitting groups, gardening groups, those types of things, those are generally ministries of the church. And really, you don't have to do too much other than maybe letting your customer service rep know that these activities are going on. The underwriting doesn't charge for them because they're ministries of the church, but they like to know, what's going on in the building. So if a claim does come up, they aren't, blindsided by, this has been going on. So those are the smaller kinds of groups. The larger groups, if they're like a business, like you're going to rent out to, oh my goodness, daycares, nurseries. You could be just letting somebody use office space. There could be, we have a few things that are different now. It's kind of new, if I can find where we have, let me just find what it's called. They're refugee housing types of situations. So those are big. Those types of things, we definitely need. The diocese needs, I'll just go into refugee first, just because that's at the top of the list too. The diocese needs to approve the ministry. There's the municipality, the city and fire department needs to come in and do a walkthrough, make sure everything is approved building wise. There needs to be a copy of an agreement between the church and what organization that might be. There's a whole litany of things, list that needs to be followed. There is we try not to charge a fee for this, but depending on what it is, the minimal fee is $245. The underwriter really needs to review. There's a questionnaire, and the customer. So what a church would do is reach out to your customer service rep, tell them that they're planning on doing some sort of this refugee housing program, and then that customer service rep will send out the recommendation document, and you'll answer some of the questions. There's probably a dozen or so questions on there, and then just send that in, and they'll send it to the underwriter. They'll make any comments that they see fit. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought somebody was talking. And then that's one of the big major liability issues that they're looking into right now. So just something to keep your eye on. Some of the other things. Yes.
Can I ask a question? The $245, is that just to review the program itself, or is that like an insurance fee, or what exactly is that?
It is basically an additional premium that that they tag on to, just so that the reinsurers know that we know that that risk is now on the policy.
Okay.
So it's a minimal amount. They felt sometimes they may not charge. It all depends on what is filled out on the form. And sometimes it might be more than that. It's whatever the underwriter feels the rate should be, depending on what the merits are of that particular case per church.
Oh, so it's like it's an additional premium then.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the other items that I was getting into before I got off on a tangent on refugee housing was, normal day-to-day businesses like schools and, people renting office space and that type of thing. They need to have their own insurance. So they have to have their own liability insurance. Depending on what it is, we charge a premium, and it's typically based off of the square foot area of the amount of space that they're leasing from you. So the rate is based off of a square footage. So it doesn't have to be exact, but, just give us an idea. It's, 500 square feet. They may be renting the parish hall. It might be 1,000 square feet, whatever it might be, just to kind of give us an idea. And those are things you also take to the customer service rep, let them know we're going to be adding this exposure on. The customer service rep will ask the appropriate questions and send it to the underwriter to find out what the additional premium would be for that exposure. And all of the church's circumstances obviously are different depending on who and what type of an organization they're renting to. So each is rated individually based on whatever that might be. Now, those are kind of longer term contracts. The shorter term, where you might have somebody coming in for a wedding. The people getting married, they don't need to technically have their own insurance, but any business coming in, the caterer, the musicians, the bar, if you're having, liquors being served and there's a bartender service type of a thing, they all have to have their own insurance. And they also need to provide the church with a copy of their certificate of insurance. If it's a wedding, they don't necessarily have to list the church as an additional insured, but any of these other entities that may be renting space more long-term should be listing the insured as an additional insured on their policy. I don't know if, Dawn, you want to speak to any of that with legal portions of that?
Leanne, I just agree with you that,
Okay.
Anybody who is entering into any long-term lease or license agreement or occupancy and use agreement has an insurance policy that lists the church, the particular parish, as an additional insured under their policy.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not, well, I mean, there are a number of, I'm well aware of the various missions of parishes, particularly with 12-step programs and things like that, where they're not really a business. They're just a group of people who are meeting there. They wouldn't be able, they probably don't have an insurance policy, and so they wouldn't be able to provide that to you, even though you would look at them as meeting regularly every Tuesday night or whatever. But I'm a big believer in communicating with your carrier, with church insurance, saying, listen, we just want you to know that, an AA meeting is here every Tuesday night or every other Tuesday night, so that the carrier is aware of it. So that, God forbid, if somebody should slip and fall coming out of a meeting in the middle of the winter, it doesn't come as a surprise to the carrier that, this particular organization was in fact meeting at your campus at one of your facilities.
Great. Yeah.
Leanne, I have a question just came to mind. We have more and more of our churches are having gardens.
Yeah.
Good News Gardens. That would be considered a program of the church.
Correct.
Is there
Yes.
anything? But that should be communicated as well.
Yeah.
I mean, is that?
The customer service rep would just shoot an email off to the underwriter and let them know. They may put it into the policy, but you wouldn't necessarily see it on the policy end of it. Or maybe you would. It might say AA program or gardening program, but there isn't.
Okay.
There is not a premium attached to that. So just so that you're aware. So sometimes they'll just put it in the notes section, and that's why you wouldn't see it. But if you did see it, I don't want our churches to start thinking we're charging for those types of ministries, because we don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's happening more and more, which is wonderful. It's just,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, those types of things. They're, even though there's the stuff going on with the Boy Scouts, we haven't broken that. We're still allowing them to use space in our churches. So, and let's see. The leases, Dawn could probably speak to this, should include a home harmless provision, so that, if there is any type of a lawsuit, they hold the church harmless. And there should be an agreement with who's responsible for maintenance and housekeeping, that type of thing. Everything should kind of be spelled out, so that there's no question on who's supposed to be doing what. It's really important when you enter into some of these agreements to have everything kind of spelled out. So our risk management tip sheet gives you all kinds of plethora of information on things like that. One of the other areas that we were going to, speak of was cyber liability. Do I have any other questions on, usage of the churches? Does anybody have any questions, Mary or Libby, on anything? Yeah.
Now my brain just went. Oh, we're actually looking and talking with someone that wants to start up a business in baking. And we actually have kind of let people know that we're looking at renting out our kitchen space and our community room space for small events and showers. But I'm thinking they do have a business. I'm not sure whether, we haven't talked that detailed about it yet. We're just testing the kitchen out to see if it's going to work for them. But if that happens, they're a business. And so I'm wondering what the difference is between something that, we're letting them use it for free gratis right now until they get comfortable. But I really want to know about what kind of wordage I have to have or an agreement. What does that agreement look like for something like that?
Sure. And I best can probably answer that. You would, because the kitchen will be used not only by this business on whatever days the business is going to use it, but by you if you're having this event, or by anybody else if they're having that event. It's not really a lease.
Right.
It's a use agreement that
building use,
permits them to use it at certain times and certain defined spaces. What they have access to, and as Leanne said, very clearly laying out their responsibilities to, clean up after themselves and do all of those sorts of things. They will be a business, and they are going to be using using equipment that could potentially cause significant problems. So they do need an insurance policy. They do need to list you as additional insured
Okay.
under the policy. And in the use agreement, we would include, and I have some samples of those if that arises,
Yeah.
include language where they, Leanne was talking about a hold harmless provision, that they agree to indemnify you and hold you harmless because,
Right.
and I don't want to rattle on here but I
Yeah.
can tell you as a practical matter, if somebody got hurt, they are going to sue everybody they could possibly
That's right.
sue. They'll sue you as the owner of the facility.
Mhm.
They're just looking for whoever has money and whoever has insurance policies.
Right.
That's the nature of the game, and to a certain extent, it is a game.
Yeah.
That goes on. And so what you want is, a hold harmless provision, which, I mean, obviously we'd like the strongest one possible. Most times people will push back and say, we will indemnify you for anything that happens as a result of our negligence. But if you guys have been negligent in whatever, we're not going to indemnify you for that. That's your own policy that has to kick in. If you're being sued because somebody got hurt because we were negligent, then we'll indemnify you. But those are the kind of discussions that you have. You start out with indemnify me for everything, and you end up with, if they've got a good lawyer, indemnifying you for their negligence.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
My question has to do with very short-term use of a building. St. Paul's has become a prime spot for concerts. The number of music groups in the Berkshires, and we have good facilities for that. So what kind of, we've been realizing that as that's been happening more and more, that we need a building use agreement with them. So we're working on that. But what beyond that? Should we be requiring them to have insurance, proof of insurance for a one-time concert?
Yeah, it's an event where presumably a lot of people are going to be there, and where the possibility that somebody could get hurt, for sure. I mean, just think of those instances, Libby, that you've read about in Rhode Island or wherever, where there's this concert and a fire starts and the door, and people are trampling each other trying to get to the door. Absolutely.
And we have in most cases
you should be notifying church insurance that you are holding these events, or that these events are being held in your facility. And I'm sure Leanne's fact sheet will lay all that out, but I don't know for a single event. I mean, it would be a fairly stripped down use agreement. You can use our parish hall for this event on this day, and they need insurance. They need insurance.
Yeah, and one other thing, when it comes to, like, is it like a sort of like a concert series where you do it from, like, I don't know, June to September, and just randomly it could be every Saturday, every other Saturday, once a month type of a thing? With something like that, you can reach out to your customer service rep and let them know that that's sort of what it is. And they can present it to the underwriter so that you don't have to let us know every single time. We could just do like I said, if it goes from June to September, we'll just do one lump June through September type of a deal. So you don't have to call every weekend and let us know and give you a certificate type of a thing.
Yeah, they'll give you an endorsement on your policy that would cover that particular.
I hope for St. Paul's that it will grow into that, but it's right now it's more random usage.
Okay, yeah.
And the larger groups all have insurance and deal easily with that, but there's some like the local high school who wants to do a jazz concert in the building, and
Mm.
it's been a tradition in the town for 30 years that happens, that kind of thing, or, you know, a very small music group that's put something together.
Yeah.
And
You
just
you
to
just
comment-
want to make sure you have insurance for it, whether or not you're going to ask the town, because it's the high school, you know,
Right.
to produce a policy with you as an additional insured. You just want church insurance to know so that you're covered if anything happens.
And the largest of the ones that we did last fall, which involved a light show projected on the building outside and inside, the town got involved with that one too. And that was a fairly lengthy process with Stockbridge to get that approval. So that one had all the pieces. And just a comment, because you talked about Boy Scouts earlier, having been the rector of a church that was sued because of alleged
Yep.
with the scout troop 40 years earlier. Being sued is not a very good experience. It's
No.
2 years worth of work, and church insurance finally settled with the complainant. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
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 Y-
Okay. Any others on use agreements or using church property? This topic? No. All right, we can move on to, I know cyber liability is a big issue nowadays. So I just kind of wanted to go over a bit on that, if I may, because it's a touchy topic, especially where everybody's, you know, nobody uses cash anymore. They're all, you know, using their debit cards and and such. So just so that everybody's more aware of what this coverage is, what it does cover, I have some samples of the coverage. So, you know, the policy, the bulk of the policy is a $250,000 liability limit for third-party coverages, which are claims made against you, as well as some first-party coverages for your own personal losses. So I wanted to just touch a little bit on a few of what the coverage is and how some of the loss examples that we've actually received to church insurance, and whether we've had to pay out or they, you know, rectified it without even needing to have us pay anything out, that type of a thing. But so breach event costs, which are legal expenses and forensic costs following a breach, that's first party coverage. So an example of that would be ransomware encrypted 5 workstations and 1 server for a church. We assigned a breach attorney and retained Navigant, which is a firm that does forensic investigations. And then counsel through investigation determined that it would not be required under Ohio state breach law. So nothing was done with that one. Does that make sense? Understood. Yeah. Yes.
So you're talking about a situation when a diocese or a parish is held hostage with some kind of malware.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's here's one that, so those, the breach event, a ransomware event is one that we see, like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them are breach events out of the 12 that I have examples of. So I guess we're seeing that more. A cyber crime event is when an insured is tricked into wire transferring funds because of a spoofed email. and we ended up paying that cyber loss. So that coverage for cyber crime is $25,000. I just wanted to make everyone kind of aware of the limit, because most of the liability limits that we're seeing on the policy, if somebody's reading the policy, the church, is $250,000. I just want to make sure they're aware they're not getting $250,000 for cyber crime. That's $25,000. That's the norm for cyber crime, for that type of a theft.
I'd like to just, if I can just interrupt for
Sure.
1 minute, Leanne, I just want to say that at the diocesan offices, we've gotten, and I'm sure everyone on this call has gotten emails from people that are, purporting to be someone when actually they're not, where we actually, for payroll purposes, get an email that it might look like it's coming from you, Libby, with like your address, asking us to change your direct deposit information. So it looks legitimate. We've had that happen. So we've had to start reaching out to individuals anytime we get an email asking for a change of direct deposit, because we don't know if it's actually coming from you. And we've also had it happen so it might look like an employee is sending it to your attention to ask us at the diocesan office to change their direct deposit information, and it actually appears to be from the employee. I mean, it's just very disconcerting. We had one direct deposit that actually got through, a change that got through, and then we found out from an individual that they never got paid. And when we looked into it, we found that we had gotten a fraudulent email. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, they're sneaky. They're very sneaky and very,
So
you
would
had a
that be an instance where the diocese could be covered for that loss?
Yes, that could be a covered loss.
What's the deductible on something like that?
So the deductible pretty much across the board is $5,000.
Yeah.
And on there's 2 non-physical business interruption. That's a time period deductible. So it has to be an 8-hour time period first. And then there's a 2-week waiting period on brand guard. And brand guard is lost revenue incurred if members, students, etc., leave over a breach. Okay. So lost revenue occurs if members leave over a breach. I'm not sure I quite understand that. I don't know if Dawn knows what that is.
I'm not sure I understand it either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could it be that it's having to do with social media? Maybe something going out that offends people?
Wait, I will have to look into that and follow up with you, because I'm reading it and there's not enough information on it of what exactly that is. But I'll check into it. Yeah, nothing else that I have here shows any other details, but in any event. So yeah, cyber crime, cyber extortion, those are some of the bigger ones, and then the breach events are the ones that we see quite a bit. You're just clicking on the wrong things, and like we have on our tag thing, we have a thing at the top that if it's not from our company, it's highlighted in yellow. This email is from outside the company, blah blah blah. So yeah. that's sort of helpful for us clicking on things that we shouldn't be clicking on anymore. So our, there is a, the PCI fines and penalty costs, those are the credit card and debit card protection if a church fails to protect numbers and passcodes. So that's the other one that's
like online giving
yes,
information.
exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So those are the main ones for cyber losses. And I also, before anyone have any questions on cyber? No. Okay. If anybody thinks of one while I move on, just we can backtrack. I wanted to go over our Episcopal safety program as well. So Susan, you might remember, we had safety inspectors years ago, and they did away with that program because they were finding across the country most of what we were getting back year after year, nothing really was changing. And church insurance was paying for the program, and they thought, well, let's put that, it was, I don't forget how much it was, $500,000. So let's put that money to different use, and that could help, cut back on premium. And so they did whatever it was that they decided to do with that. But what they did was, my coworkers that are in my position that do what I do, we can be the boots on the ground going out and inspecting these churches. So, so the Episcopal safety program is still there. It would fall to me. And if a church, wanted to contact me to come out and do an inspection, I would certainly do that. But I will also reach out to our churches and do inspections as well on my own, set appointments up and just say, yeah, we're going to just come out and do a walkthrough type of thing, and grab the low-hanging fruit, point a few things out. There seems to be this idea that this program, with me being part of the company doing it now, creates expenses for the church, because I might point out something going on with the roof, or some cracking in the foundation, or some of these bigger type of things, and I have to report that back to our underwriter, and then the underwriter checks in with me every month or 6 weeks or so. Anything going on, this needs to be, put to the top of the list to get repaired, however they want us to do. So it's being looked at by, I know some of my churches have commented to me on it that, oh, well, this turns into a big expense with you coming out and inspecting my church. So it's not meant to do that and put undue pressure, financial pressure on the churches, but it's a good tool to use for eliminating any other potential liability claims that could arise, or future property claims that could arise, or, if you have roof leaking and the inside ceiling or wall is starting to deteriorate and fall. I mean, it's just safety 101 type things that we're looking to try to do. So I just wanted to put that out there that, we're not doing this to try and generate, our churches to have to, pay out more than they need to. They should be setting an expectation at the beginning of, maybe at the beginning of spring every year, of what do we have that needs to be done? What do we have that would like to be done? And then the wish list of, after all the other things are done, and be able to somehow, in this world that we're in right now with expensive premium rates and everything's just expensive. being able to put more money aside for that shrinking plate and the empty pews that we have every week, and trying to generate people to come back into the church. So it's just, our way of trying to make everything safe for everybody that is coming to the church. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of go over that a little bit on the safety inspections. Is there any topic that you'd like me to cover that I may not have here, that I might be covering other topics, but we could touch on? We have 20 minutes left. If there's anything else first, and if not, I can go into a couple of these other topics. No? All right. I want to go into church violence a little bit, because it's unbelievable that we have to think about it. But we have a really good tip sheet on our website for church violence. Creating a preparedness plan, communicating with members, tips to mitigate the risk of a violent event, and ways to maintain a balance between being open to the community, but also keeping in mind that safety is top priority and is an issue now of within the church. So that tip sheet, I would just like to point that one out on there. If you go on our website and look that tip sheet over, we do have coverage in the policy for let's see, it's a $10 million policy countrywide, and if I could find it, and it is malicious attack coverage. It's $10 million per occurrence with the 10 million aggregate. Hopefully, God forbid, we ever have to use this. There's a $250,000 crisis management and public relations expense there. And then there's $250,000 for additional security expenses and $250,000 for counseling. So, we did unfortunately have to build that into our policy. So sad to say, but it is there. And I encourage everyone to go in and just take a peek at that. Another topic I just wanted to touch on is fine arts, because we get a lot of questions about what is a fine art, and how do we go about appraising these, and it costs so much money, and it does. It's a lot to get an appraisal out there, but there is a great risk management fact sheet on the website for fine arts, for cataloging fine arts, going into what fine arts can include. And stained glass is on there as a fine art, but we do actually, our stained glass windows are considered part of the building values, and they're built into the building values. So a lot of our churches don't realize that, but they're part of the building values, even though they are a fine art. So that's kind of, if we could get appraisals on all of them, wonderful. We'd still like to have them. Yeah. So any questions on fine arts at all? No, good topic.
One question that comes to mind is that I know we have, well, probably a lot of the windows are irreplaceable.
Yeah.
But I know we do have some churches that have
Tiffany's
Tiffany
and
windows
Lafarge.
that-
Sure.
So, how is that handled, Leanne? I mean, as far as, something that really can't be replaced.
Right.
Can only be
So
replaced with like something very
like kind of
similar.
quality. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I try and tell my client it's another expense to list the windows individually on what we call an inland marine floater on top of their policy. It is an expense. It's more expensive than just having them be part of the building coverage. The only thing with that is it's an agreed amount. So if you have a Tiffany window that's, you know, worth $500,000 and it's scheduled, you're going to get $500,000 for that. If we have a church and the $500,000 Tiffany window is damaged beyond repair, you can't replace that $500,000 Tiffany window. The claims adjuster works with the church on that to at least get something like kind and quality, but we're insuring it under the building as stained glass, a little bit higher because it's a Tiffany, so it's getting a different value attached to it, but it's not the appraised value and scheduled, if you will, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
Where do those instruments fall?
So just that everybody's clear, Leanne. So if you are a church that has Tiffany stained glass windows, you have a choice to make. You can pay an extra premium to list them with an appraised value, or they can just be part of the general building and they have a value that you have, that the adjuster will place on them in the event of one of them were destroyed.
It's kind of, yes. Yes and no. So yes, but if you have an appraisal on it and it's not, so if you have an appraisal and it's scheduled, there's no question at all. If you have an appraisal and it's not scheduled and it's part of the building, we will insure it as part of the building for that 500,000. But if you have a total loss,
Right, there's a max. Yeah,
there's a
limit.
max, so you may not potentially get that that value of the Tiffany window, and we can't get a Tiffany window back anyway. So you're going to get a replica of some kind, and it's not going to be that cost. So when there's damage to a building, and you're insured for replacement cost, you're going to get replacement cost for that.
Yeah, but yeah. So
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, if you have a Tiffany window and you are concerned, you should say to yourself, look, I can schedule it and with an appraisal, and if anything happens to it, the company knows it. And by the way, I get a premium based upon whatever the value is of whatever it is I'm scheduling.
Correct.
But then I know I'll get it if it's damaged. Or you can say, I got a maximum amount of insurance on my building. It's a replacement value insurance policy. If the window gets damaged, we'll get you a high quality replacement window, but it isn't going to be a Tiffany, and it isn't going to be a $500,000 high value replacement window. And that's just a financial decision for the parish to make.
Yes. And honestly, we really, I'm not going to say never, because it could happen, never say never, but we don't really have issues with settlements with our claim department. Yeah. So I'm pretty much done with my presentation. If I don't know if there's anything else anybody else wants to, talk about. insurance wise, you got me, ask me anything. It doesn't have to do with risk management. It could be anything.
I do have something else I wanted to mention
Sure.
that has happened with and it has to do with securing checks that are being sent out to vendors. We've had an instance where we sent a check from the diocesan office and it was stolen from the mail and altered. And I mean, ultimately, we did get the money back because the check was altered and the bank that accepted it has to assume the liability for that. But just a good thing to keep in mind if you are sending out checks to vendors, to be sure that they're, if you have a secure place to keep the mail, or if maybe you can do electronic payments, especially if it's a large amount of money. But it took us a while to actually get the money back, restored back to the account. But it's just, I think this is just something that's happening. It's just something to be aware of. This is, I think it happens to individuals certainly, where mail is taken, and people will do pretty much anything now to try and get extra money in any way that they can. So I just want to mention that because that has actually happened. I think the check was maybe about, I think it was about a $5,000 check. So just something to be aware of.
Bad guys are getting smarter all the time.
They
know.
are.
Just when you think you have it down, what to be looking for and afraid of, they come up with a new entry point into the system.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
One
I
more
know I
thing,
learned
maybe.
a lot tonight.
Oh, did you? Well, let me give you one more thing. I'll let you go. Claims. When a church has a claim, sometimes they're reluctant to report it until they know, injury. I'm talking injury claims. They really should let us know, give us notice of injury, immediately, even if it doesn't go anywhere, because I know Dawn can probably speak to this. I think it's 3 years in Massachusetts, the statute of limitations. So they have 3 years. They could fall and nothing happen. And 6 months later decide, like I think Dawn and Susan, we were talking, they could go to a doctor and the doctor could pin that on, oh, you fell, that's probably from that. And then all of a sudden you're gonna, and that could be 3 years later and they have up to 3 years to file a claim. So it's just good. If nothing comes of it, the underwriters are gonna look at that and not, as no claim payment paid out, and just bypass it when they're looking at renewals, and they look at loss history. They look at the 5-year loss history when they're looking at renewals. And that's a lot of reason why, churches don't want to report it right away. They don't have anything going on, but it's really important to let us know immediately when something does happen. And Dawn, if you want to speak to any of that as well, feel free.
No, I absolutely concur. And Leanne is right. The statute of limitations, which is the statute that governs how long you have to file a lawsuit for negligence claims, personal injury claims, is 3 years. And frequently, it's not the unusual occurrence, it's the frequent occurrence that when an injury happens and the person goes to the lawyer and treat, and months go by, and they're going to a chiropractor, or they're doing this, or they're doing that, and they're
Mhm.
getting all of their bills and expenses together, you can literally get a letter from them, you know, a month after somebody fell, and not hear a word for a year and a half or two.
Mhm.
And then the next thing you know, you get the sheriff comes and serves you a complaint.
Mm.
You know, that somebody's filed a lawsuit, and it's much better to let the insurance company know, and they won't do anything. And I agree with Leanne. It's not, if they're not spending money, they haven't hired you a lawyer, if they haven't paid a claim, you know, actually paid money on a claim, it's not going to affect your premium. It's only when they have to actually lay out money that it potentially will affect your premium. And putting them on notice right away is absolutely the best thing to do. No question about it. You get a letter, you're the rector, you get a letter, contact your insurance company, send them the letter, and they'll get back to you. And when and if there is a lawsuit filed, they will hire a lawyer for you to represent you.
Right.
Insurance policies have, Leanne knows this, they have two obligations. They have a duty to defend if
Mhm.
you are sued, and they have a duty to reimburse if you have to pay, up to the policy limits, obviously. And there are two different duties, and what triggers each duty, the duty to defend is triggered pretty easily. All there has to be is an allegation of negligence, and the duty to defend kicks in. So you just remember that there are two duties, and that's important that you put them on notice. Not that church insurance would, but some insurance companies, if they're not put on notice in an appropriate amount of time, will claim you violated a term in the policy of putting them on notice, and they're not going to defend you, and they're not going to pay. I'm not saying church insurance would do that.
Right.
I'm saying you guys have a contract, and the contract has language in it, and depending upon who you're dealing with, they interpret the language strictly or not so strictly. It's a contract. That's what it is. It's a contract.
We
So-
like to think we're churchy, so we're
Yeah.
family, so.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But,
It's
yes,
just-
but, yeah.
yeah, I'm a lawyer. You're churchy. I'm a lawyer. You know.
Well, this has been great. I mean, we're at 5:59. The hour has gone by. I know, I think it's gone by pretty quickly. So,
Yep.
Leanne, thank you so much. Don, thank you. Thank you, Mary and Libby
Thank you.
and
Yes.
Vicky.
I
This
thank
was
you all
great,
for your
Susan.
time. It's been wonderful.
Thank you
Great
for.
questions. I learned a lot. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Oh, great, great.
This is very
right.
informative.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right. See you all.
Good
Yep.
night.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good
Have a
night.
have a nice sabbatical, Vicky.
Thank you.